Well, again, good morning, and as I said, so the message you were expecting to hear today, you will hear next week. So God's got a little something else in store for us today. So as many of you know, I have been through the ordination process with the Assemblies of God, part of which includes taking courses from Global University. And if you're not familiar with it, there's 9 classes a year that you take. So they meet. So let me step back for a second. There's a couple options you have. One is that you can do this online. The other is in Missouri, the state of Missouri, they have set up the Missouri School of Ministry that you can utilize, which will allow you to actually go on site and take a class. Now, you don't have to go to Springfield, the Global University. There's different schools that are set up through the area. And here in our area, it's at First Assembly in St. Peter's. They have courses there that they offer through each track, through each session. So if you do that, classes start in February and they go through October. You meet once a month, you sign up for your class, and they send you the book. You study the material. Each chapter has a self-test that you do, and then there's a big quiz at the end of each unit. Try to get ready, and then when you go to class on Saturday, the purpose is for you to go and get prepared to pass the test. Now, the challenge is, depending on who your teacher is, some of them have little different philosophies in how they get you to that point. For some, God love them, they'll just take the test, they'll walk through each question, and you'll go through and you'll shout out an answer, and if you got a really good memory, you can just remember it, and then you're going to go back just a couple hours later, and you're going to take the test. Some of them want to share a little more information, and that was one of the reasons why I decided I wanted to take that approach, was because I wanted to hear a little bit more information. Also, it was good to sit with other people and hear their experiences in that. The problem is sometimes they get a little too much information, and it's easy to kind of get far afield. Now, one of the teachers that they had there, and I asked Pastor Pam, I don't know if you remember, do you remember Charlie's last name at First Assembly? Okay. We can't remember his last name, but I loved him as a teacher because I thought he did the best job of blending, giving you more than what's in the book so you can really learn and grow, while at the same time not just flooding you with that and taking the focus off the test. But in the first year that I went through classes, I did have one instructor who came and she taught our class. Beautiful, lovely lady. She came from the Southern District. She was passionate about the material, and I told her about that later. I loved the passion that she had. The problem was we got really far afield of what our intention was for being there. At one point, a couple that was in there together, they shared an experience they were having. So she paused class, and she looked at me. She goes, "Mike, would you lead them in prayer on this?" I'm like, "Okay." Wasn't quite expecting that, but sure. And again, not there. We want to definitely, if people are going through something and they need prayer, we want to raise them up in prayer. Of course, a lot of times they would usually do that before the class would start, because we would all meet together, and one of the things they would ask for is prayer requests. But we did that. Anyway, so yeah, we definitely went kind of far afield of where we were supposed to go. So at the end of class, you'll get a little survey, little 5-question survey, and you can rank 1 to 5 some different things about the class. And the last one is, what are some things we can do to improve the class? So you're given an opportunity to rate your instructor through that. However, she felt the need to ask us how we thought class went at the end. So I said, you know what? I love the passion. You had a great passion and material. I love the passion you had. I go, but we chased a few rabbits. And she received that well. She said, okay, I get you. I understand. But we did. We chased some rabbits. And what happens when you chase a rabbit? If you're familiar with the book Alice in Wonderland, if you chase a rabbit, you'll go down a rabbit hole, right? And then you'll go some places where you're just not sure where that's going to take you. And there's a lot of opportunities for us to get exposed to those rabbit holes today. There's so many things out there where they try to get you a hook on something and try to get you, pull you in. Social media is great for that. I don't know if great's the right word, but where they'll put things out there and they'll just try to draw your attention, and you'll click on it, Sometimes it'll be an article, and you click on it and go, let's see what it's got to say. Well, if you want to see what it's got to say, you got to pay $1.99 or whatever to find out what that is. Well, I don't really want to know it that bad. And because of the way the internet works today, they'll take a search you'll do on one computer, and that'll pop up in your feed somewhere else. Doesn't even have to be you. Carmen went and bought some Birkenstocks a couple weeks ago, but she used our home computer, so when I got on Facebook later, I have Birkenstock ads popping up in my Facebook feed. I could care less about Birkenstock, but that's how it works. That is how it works. At work, I work at MasterCard, so one thing they try to do is try to make sure you are diligent about being aware of phishing that takes place. So every once in a while, they'll send you a little test email, and there's a button. If you think that someone is trying to phish for information, you click report phishing, and that'll send something to the security department. So every once in a while, they'll test you. And I'm usually pretty good at that. Now, oh yeah, this is wrong. I'll click the report phishing thing. Good job, you did well. Well, a couple weeks ago, I took a couple vacation days in the middle of the week that I wasn't anticipating taking, so I took one. And then I told my manager I was going to have to take the next day off, so I logged in to turn it in, and then I saw one of these emails that, oh, your manager has denied your vacation request. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I just talked to her about that. But because of it grabbed my attention because I needed this day off, and I was in kind of a hurry, I clicked the email, and I got the little thing that said, it's a good thing that this wasn't real because we just trapped you. We got you in our little fishing expedition there. And like, oh, great. So there are so many ways. There's so many ways that the enemy can use to get our attention. So this is not a new phenomenon, this whole fishing thing, because this has been going on since the beginning of time, since the garden. And that's what we're going to look at in Genesis chapter 3 today. We're going to talk about the original sin. In Genesis 3, chapter 1, it says, the serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals the Lord had made. One day he asked the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any of the trees in the garden? So right away what we learn here is, the enemy is no dummy. He knows exactly what strings to pull to get your attention. Just like what we talked about in social media, they find out what your interest is, and so once they find that out, they start hammering you with different things because they know you're interested in it, and they might get you to take the bait and to click on it. And it can start off so innocent. I mean, the thing is, this is, the enemy here is not just all of a sudden attacking Eve. He's asking what seems to be a rather innocent question. He's just starting a dialogue with her, starting to engage her a little bit. And what he's doing is he's laying the foundation for what's to come ahead. But he starts it off with a simple question. It's, did God really say you must not eat from the fruit of any of the trees in the garden? In verse 2, he says, of course we may eat the fruit from the trees in the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit from the middle of the tree that we're not allowed to eat. God said you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die. So right away, there should have been bells and whistles going off for Eve that she needed to not be a part of this conversation. It is time to walk away. So what I was thinking about was, for any of you old Lost in Space fans, the robot, danger, Will Robinson, danger. There should have been bells and whistles going off telling her that she needed to walk away from this. But she didn't. She thought, oh, okay, this is a simple question. All I have to do is answer the question. Now, for me, the first thing is I got a snake talking to me. So that should be a little something right there that scares you off a little bit. And one of my favorite, and I think it was because it was one my mom took me to for my birthday, my favorite animated Disney movie is The Jungle Book. And what's one of the characters in there? The snake, Kaa. Yes, Kaa. Kaa likes to come down and tempt Mowgli and just try to, disarm him and engage him in such a way that, oh, I'm not really going to hurt you. There's nothing I want to do to you when really all he wants to do is just wrap his coils around Mowgli and just squeeze the life out of him. That's, so right away, Eve should have had some like I said, there should have been some warning bells going off that I need to walk away from this situation. But of course she didn't. She engages the serpent in conversation. So of course he's more than willing to continue on. In verse 4, he says, "You won't die," the serpent replied to the woman. "God knows that your eyes will be opened as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So now it's time for him to set the hook. I've got her. Now it's time for me to use, and the bait that he uses is he's planting a seed that maybe God is withholding something from Adam and Eve. Now, they're in paradise, folks. I mean, they are in the greatest place they could ever be in. God has given them life. God has placed them in such a lush garden. They shouldn't have to worry about, am I missing out on something? But Eve suffers from FOMO, fear of missing out. See, that's how we talk today. We can't use the whole words. We have to use acronyms. Like I used earlier, GOAT. We have to use acronyms or use some sort of shortened slang. So Eve is suffering from FOMO because the serpent is planting a seed that there's maybe more that she could have that she doesn't have. And again, kind of going back to social media. For those of you take trips and all that, and you put your pictures out there, I love it. I'm glad that God is blessing you and that you're having a good time. But sometimes the danger of that is people start to see that and they start to have that same thing, fear of missing out. They feel because they're seeing someone else have fun that maybe they're not having, they start to worry about, okay, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not able to experience that? Well, I had a friend who took a family vacation, and I mean, she really chronicled that on Facebook, which is great. They had a great time. But when she got home, I teased her later. I said, "I'm glad you're home from vacation because I am exhausted." I mean, I felt like I was right there the whole time, you know, and I'm wore out. I need a vacation from your vacation. And we had a laugh at it. We had a lot of fun. But that's what happens. Things should be good. But there's something that happens that makes us think that we're not experiencing all that we could, then we start to wonder. And that's what Eve is getting here. Satan is planting that seed with her that, you know what, God's withholding something from you. If you eat of that tree, it's because you can have a greater experience than what you're having now. So, of course, she can't resist. Verse 6 says, "The woman was convinced. She saw the tree was beautiful, and its fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too." And we talked about this many times, but, you know, Adam tries to get a pass. Then we try to give Adam a pass. You know, it was Eve who ate the fruit, and then she gave it to Adam. Well, Adam was right there. He was right there. At any point, he could have stopped this. But he didn't. He allowed Eve to be taken in. And then he turned around and he ate of the fruit as well. In verse 7 says, "At that moment their eyes were open, and they suddenly felt shame at their nakedness. So they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves." So oftentimes we think we're missing out on something. There's something greater that we can have. And so we take steps to get that. And instead of receiving joy out of it, it's oftentimes an experience that's the opposite of that. Here, they think, okay, we're going to get wisdom. This is great because we can know even more now. We can be even better. Our life can be better than what it is now. And instead, they suffer through shame. And they start, you know, and as you go through and read the story, then they try to hide from God. You know, they run away. They try to hide because they are ashamed of what they did. And what we really need to be aware of is the fact that we are, again, this is nothing new, and this is always ongoing. We need to be aware that we are always susceptible to temptations, the temptations that Eve faced. There's something that could be in us that's dormant for a long time, and all of a sudden there's a trigger, and that'll come out, and it can consume our lives. It can overtake us and take us down a destructive path. So on July 2nd, 1991, and you'll understand in a second why I can remember that date so well, there was a big experience that happened in St. Louis County. Guns N' Roses had a concert at the Riverport Amphitheater, and there was a riot. There was a riot. And I worked second shift at the time over at McDonnell Douglas. So as I was driving home and driving down 70, I could see all the emergency vehicles. I'm listening to Cam Wexford trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I find out there was this big riot at Riverport. Well, the next day, I go home from work. I get home, and I notice this little spot on my leg that looks like a pimple. And what do you do when you get a pimple, right? Especially if it's got a white head on it. Anybody watch Dr. Pimple Popper, you know, that, well, I'm gonna pop that thing, right? Except it wouldn't pop. And it started to hurt. Well, the next day was 4th of July, Independence Day, right? So what do? We want to celebrate. We have a good time on the 4th of July. So we had friends over. We barbecued, and then we went down to the St. Charles Riverfront for the festivities there and the fireworks. One of the friends that was with us, she happened to be a nurse at St. Joe's, so we were able to take advantage of that and park in their parking lot so we didn't have to deal with finding parking or whatever. Well, as the day is going on, my leg is hurting more. It's swelling, and it is hot. I mean, if you touch that thing, it is hot. And so she's trying, my friend who's a nurse, she's trying to encourage me. She goes, I think you need to go to the emergency room. I'm like, well, I'm going to the doctor tomorrow, which I did. I had a doctor's appointment scheduled the next day for something else. She goes, I think if you don't go get it checked out tonight, you may not have a leg tomorrow to go before you go to the doctor. Like, all right. So anyway, and it's not out of my way because I'm already parked in their parking lot, right? So she convinces me to go to the emergency room. I go to the emergency room. So they're trying to check it out. They're trying to see if they can get anything out of there. They can't get it. They determine it's a spider bite, that I had a spider bite. So they give me an antibiotic shot. They give me a tetanus shot and send me with an antibiotic to get refilled right away. There's no waiting till tomorrow. There's Walgreens, says 24 hours. You go there, you get this filled. And it started to calm down, but it didn't go away. So over time, over the next couple of years, I had these, they would either pop up mostly on my leg or on my fingers. I'd have these things that would pop up. And we never could figure out what it was. Part of the problem was they couldn't get enough, I'll say fluid, out of it to run tests on it to see what it was. One day I had one on my leg, and I thought, all right, this is going to get them what they need. I called them, made an appointment. The problem was it opened up before I got to the doctor, so still unable to find out what was going on. Finally, I got one on my lower back, right along the belt line there. Went to the doctor, and my doctor actually wasn't in that day, so I saw his associate. And he drained that thing out, and he said, we got enough fluid out there. He goes, there's a hole in your back right now. We could put a ping pong ball in. We're going to figure out what this is. And what it turned out to be was something that my doctor originally did not think it was. It was a staph infection. So all this time, I had a staph infection. And it was just manifesting itself in different ways. So because I had this, I wanted to look it up and see, all right, I've heard of it. I had a brother-in-law that was considered a staph carrier, but I obviously had never experienced it before. So like, what is a staph infection? So as I read about it, I find out that that's a staph is a bacteria that can be dormant. It can be in your body for years, and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, there's a trigger, and whatever that trigger is, and it'll start. And that's what I was experiencing. Something had triggered it in my body. So I started getting all these things that were popping up, and they were quite uncomfortable a lot of times. Matter of fact, one time I had one with the doctor, and I went to the doctor's office, and my finger, he was going to try to see if he could squeeze. My finger was like twice its size. He was going to try to see if he could squeeze that stuff out of there, and I almost passed out because it hurt so bad. But this was something inside of me, and then something caused it to manifest itself and to open up. And that's the way we are today. There are things we don't know. There could be things in our life. There could be triggers. And then it could cause us to go down a path because we look at something, we think, oh, that I want that. I desire that. And then it takes us down a path that instead of leading to joy can lead to destruction. Had an opportunity a couple months ago to celebrate a milestone birthday with a friend of mine. And his family threw him a big party. And we met at a local restaurant. They threw him a big party. It was great. So, of course, I see other friends there. And I'm sitting at a table with one set of friends, and I have another friend that's sitting at a table over here. And I'm here, and he's sitting like this talking with the folks at his table. But we were able to talk. We conversed. Well, later, he actually came up to me and wanted to make sure that I understood that he wasn't purposely turning his back to me, which, quite honestly, I never even gave it a second thought. But I appreciated what he shared. He goes, he was turning his back to the bar because he had, in his past, he had struggles with alcohol. And so he didn't even want to look at the bar. It wasn't even a matter of, seeing anybody order. It was the fact he did not even want to look at it because he didn't want to face that, because that was a temptation. And I so applauded that. I just thought it was great that he had that strength, that he would still be there to support his friend, but that he was not going to put himself in a position to be tempted. So what do we do when we're out there, when we have to face these possibilities? What is it we need to do to protect ourselves? And I think the best answer is found in Proverbs chapter 4. For those of you, if you haven't been, so one of the classes I took during my time was Dr. Ray Brewer, who's our Pastor Ray Brewer, who's our superintendent, taught the class. And he told us something, I, to be honest, I'd never thought before. And I'm sure it's been out there many times, but I just never really thought about it. There's 31 Proverbs. So most months have 31 days, right? You got a proverb a day you can read. So I encourage you, each day, find a proverb for that day. But in Proverbs chapter 4, starting at verse 20, it says, "My child, pay attention to what I say. Listen carefully to my words. Don't lose sight of them. Let them penetrate deep into your heart, for they bring life to those who find them and healing to their whole body. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on that safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil." So you want to avoid having whatever's inside of you open up and be exposed? Keep your eyes on Christ. Keep your eyes on the Father. Guard your heart. The heart is so important. Whatever's in your heart drives how you live your life. That's why it's so important to guard your heart. And you can't waver off the path. Because once you take that step off the path, you'll go right down the rabbit hole. We want to stay out of the rabbit hole. We want to stay on a path. We want to keep our focus on God, on what it is that He has for our lives. So, Father, we thank you for this word you've given us, the example that we see how easy it is just in seeing what happened with Eve, Adam and Eve, because they had everything, and yet they thought there could be a little bit more to make them even happier than they should have already been. And we see the result of that was it took them into a spot, Lord, where they sinned against you. So as we face many things in our life, many challenges in our life, there's temptations that are put up before us each and every day. I pray, Lord, that each of us here keep our eyes on you, our eyes fixed on you, our hearts on you, Lord, and that we don't stray from the path. And if we start to see ourselves waver, Lord, that we just immediately come back to you, Father. And the great thing is that we know, even if we do stray, we know that you're there to receive us with open arms because you are such a good, good Father. And you're there to get us put back on that path, Lord. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.